Hey everyone, today we're going to be taking a quick look at the performance on Diablo 4 on the Steam Deck. Also, I'm going to show you very quickly how to install it if you don't know how to. So what you're going to do is download the Battle.net setup on Blizzard, blizzard.com, wherever. Just type in Battle.net and you'll get the download. And then what you're going to want to do is right click on that and click Add to Steam. Now I'm not going to do it here because I already have it installed, so I'll just kind of tell you the process. So after you get it added to Steam, you can either go into game mode or you can go into Steam. And then when you're in your library, you would pull up Battle.net launcher, or the Battle.net install, sorry. So you would pick Battle.net, and I rename mine just to straight Battle.net. And then what you would do is right click on that, go to properties, go down to compatibility, and then change force use to Proton Experimental. It seems to yield the best performance. And then once you've done that, then you can go ahead and launch the program and just hit play. Now what it'll do, if you've installed Battle.net before, it'll just take you through the Battle.net install process, blah blah blah, do all that. Once it's all said and done, you can go ahead and close down Battle.net, and then you're going to go ahead and go back into Steam, and then you're going to right click on the Battle.net install file, and then you're going to go back into properties, and then go down to browse. So what it's going to be doing is it's going to be linked to your Battle.net install file still. So if you go to launch it, it'll just try to install it again. It's not going to actually launch the install. So what you're going to need to do is find out where it put the file. So for an easy way, what you're going to have to do is go into home deck.local/share/Steam apps. Here, I'll take you through it here just because I messed it up. So home deck.local share, and then we're going to go down to Steam. If you do have a keyboard and mouse, it is a little bit easier. I'm just using a wireless kind of keyboard and mouse combo here. It's all in one. So okay, now we're on Steam, and then we're going to go down to Steam apps. And then we're going to go to compat data. And now what you're going to find in here is a folder full of random numbers. Don't worry about that. It can be a little overwhelming. If you have a lot of programs installed, then it can be a little harder to find. But what you're going to want to do is basically find the string of numbers that has the longest string of numbers. So in my case, it's 40717364992. So we'll go into that folder there, and then we'll go into PFX, and then drive C. So what this is like an emulated instance of a Windows machine. So now we're looking through our Windows folder essentially. And then what you're going to want to do is go into, drive C, program files x86, and then you won't have Diablo there, you'll just have Battle.net. So you'll go to Battle.net, and then you will go down to Battle.net launcher right here. Battle.net launcher.exe, and then you'll open that and have that as your new launcher. So that when you now hit play on Battle.net, it should bring you right into Battle.net after it's already been installed. So remember, do the install first with the download file, back out of Battle.net, and then do the change around. Alright, to start things off, we'll just go through my settings here. So I've got pretty much medium settings, native resolution for the screen resolution, but then FSR set to quality. And then I set the sharpening to 60, but I believe it starts off at 90. You can change that to your preference. And then moving on, again, it's a custom setting, but set it to medium, and then most of the settings will be applied. I believe I set shadows to quality, or shadow quality to low, fog quality to low, and then I think that was pretty much it. There might be a few other changes there, but yeah, these settings are fairly decent. And yeah, so you can copy these, and with that, we're able to get a locked 40 for sure. There might be some super heavy late scenes in the late gameplay where it might dip below, but at least early on, the heavier kind of dungeons early on, yeah, we're getting a locked 40. Now with these settings, you can go up to 60, obviously at the expense of battery life. Would I recommend it? I'd say no. I don't think Diablo really needs to be a 60 FPS game, quite honestly. It plays very well at 40 FPS, I would say. And with the later kind of dungeons, and even the dungeons now that I'm getting to, I'm only level 22, I believe. And... oh, sorry, 28 apparently, my goodness, wow, okay. So yeah, so even the levels that I'm at now, yeah, if I were to play it at 60, I would be getting dips below. Now keep in mind I have a slight undervolt. You see it just dipped right there to 50 with a stutter. So keep in mind I have a slight undervolt and a slight overclock applied. Honestly, it doesn't really go too much above the stock voltage. If anything, it's more so just for battery savings with the undervolt. But it does go above the stock clocks at times. I have tried locking the GPU as well, and it did seem to kind of be okay at the 1200 mark, but then I was playing earlier today and I saw the GPU being used up to 1600 megahertz. So that's the full max speed. So honestly, I would suggest just leaving that alone, unless you're going for a locked 40 FPS, then you could put in that GPU lock because you're not going to be using it as much. Obviously, the higher FPS is more CPU intensive, but still doing that with the GPU. Sorry, I'm just trying to play at the same time here. But anyway, so yeah, again, just to kind of cap things off, if you want a 40 FPS cap, yeah, go ahead and do a GPU lock if you want, but honestly, I don't think you really need to. You can try to go for 60 FPS, but just know it will dip below 60 with moments of little stutter here and there, no matter your settings that you set, whether you set them all the way to low. We can even do that here for you now. Even because... just because the CPU in the deck is underpowered, right? So you're going to have those moments of stutter. You're going to have the... and even if... here, we'll just change it down to performance and see what we get out of that, to be quite honest. That would be the smarter move, I would say. But honestly, I believe at performance, you're still going to get drops below 60. So we'll do this event here, and I'm not going to do any benchmarking, but we'll just leave it at 60, and then we'll see what we get to. Okay, that wasn't a too intensive combat encounter. I've seen heavier, but it actually did fairly well there. There still was the moments of dips and stutters and stuff to like 50, 55. And again, right there was just more stutters down below 60. So we'll change it over to a 40 Hz lock just to see. Okay, so we're not using a 40 Hz lock, but we're using the 40 FPS limiter in Diablo 4 itself. So as you can see here, running at 40 FPS, we're not really getting those big kind of moments and dips, but we'll keep going, because you never know. But you could tell before that even though I was dodging and moving around as quickly as I could, there was those moments and dips down to 50, 55. Again, I'm just starting out. I'm only level 28, so I don't know all the kind of heavier end areas, but in the dungeons, you'll be getting a locked 40. There might be the little tiny moments of like the 1 or 2 FPS drops here and there, but honestly 99% of the time you're getting that 40 FPS. And 40 FPS in Diablo, again, in my opinion, is honestly the way to go on the deck, and probably most handhelds, just for battery life concerns and playability. You get that nice little boost in frame timing from 30 FPS, and the battery life isn't that bad. We're getting between 15 to 18 watts in my observations, doing a 40 FPS lock. Doing a uncapped or 60 FPS lock, we were getting in the neighborhood of 20 to 24 watts system usage at times. So, yeah, if you want to be plugged in, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Try your 60 FPS. Try overclocking a little bit if you can. I don't think it'll net too much performance gains, and we'll try that a little bit as well. We'll get into another combat encounter, and we'll just do a straight unlocked FPS. Okay, so as you can see here, I've set my overclock to 18 watts for the TDP, and again, you can do that through using Smokeless and the Smokeless Steam Deck unlocker tool. I made a previous video on it, so if you want to check that out, it's the overclocking the Steam Deck video. So getting back into Diablo, we will go and unlock our FPS again. So I did set it to unlocked in the Steam Deck settings already, and then we'll go into our max foreground and we'll just crank it all the way up to something ridiculous like do a nice 169, why not? There we go. Save those changes, beautiful. Return to game, and we're still locked at 60. Right, because I didn't turn off VSync, I'm a dummy. Okay, there we go, VSync off, and saved. Okay, wow, look at those frame rates, holy cow. Okay, and we're pushing up to 1700 megahertz on the GPU there, nice overclock. So, yeah, okay, here we go, overclock, it might do something pretty nice. Okay. I'm just going to do a point-for-point comparison here, right on the spot, just because I'm curious. Oh, whoops, sorry. Okay, I'll move over here, let it settle in. I can feel the heat cranking on my pinky, but, I mean, temperatures aren't terrible from what they usually are when you're cranking max settings on lock frame rate, and I'm doing it ridiculously, too, running at 90 FPS. Nobody in their right mind would be doing that, unless they're docked, I guess. This would be an excellent docked experience game, you know, playing 40 on the go, 60 plus docked with a nice overclock or something. But, yeah, so here, I'm just going to go into the overclock and just going to turn that off. So we'll see we're hovering around 12 to 13 watts on the GPU usage, and between 1 to 3, 2 to 3 on the CPU. So we'll turn that off, and it should take a sec. Oh, pretty instantly there. So now we're down to 10 watts on the GPU, and we're hovering at around... Let it settle in again. 90 to 92 FPS. High 80s. Sitting on that spot. Okay. And I think we were high 90s before. So let's turn this up again. I do have it set to 19 watts as my max, but I find in a lot of games if I have it set to 19, my Steam Deck will overheat. It'll get into a slowdown state and then eventually shut down if I don't do anything about it. We can see here we got a nice little boost. I mean, they're still dropping down to the high 80s, but we're getting up to the mid to high 90s at times, just sitting in the spot here. So, you know, overclocking, turning up your TDP, sorry, a little bit, actually does do a little bit of help. And we can see here, just before I'm about to die, we're in a pretty decently heavy combat encounter, and yeah, you can see that we're dropping to the mid to low 60s at times. And yeah, there I go, I'm dead. Sorry. But yeah, so the overclock does help, obviously. I'm not... If you guys want me to do an extensive benchmark, I can. But with the nature of Diablo, like, it's pretty tough to do, right? So in moments like this where I can do a repeatable test, we're going to be getting high FPS. But in a moment where we're getting heavy combat, I can't really repeat that too much because of these random combat encounters, right? Sometimes you get the heavier but less dense enemies, and then sometimes you get those skeletons that just overwhelm you, and those are going to do the biggest drops. And then when I have my corpse explosions going, and my skeletons are up and everything, that's when we're going to produce the biggest drops. And in the late game, having played Diablo quite extensively in the past. Diablo 3, Diablo 2, Diablo 1, all that. Like, it gets heavier and heavier and more intense in the late games if you've never played a Diablo game before. So in those moments that you're dropping, so even just here, okay, let's get some corpse explosions, see what we can do here. Okay, so we're still above 60, which is nice. The corpse explosions, they don't seem to affect it too bad. But yeah, so we were dropping from an 80 FPS, 90 FPS, down all the way to 60. So again, it's going to be when there's heavy combat on the screen. If you're playing with a full group of people and they got all their spell effects and everything going. And keep in mind, we're running an FSR Performance right now as well. It's, you know, go for the 60 FPS experience if you really need 60 FPS, but you're going to get drops below. If you're into overclocking, absolutely. Do the overclocking, do a mild TDP overclock of 17 to 18 watts. I find that's kind of the best performance to loss of battery life ratio that makes sense to me. But it might not make sense to everybody. Some people are just like, nah, I'm not going to do that. It's going to screw up my deck, whatever. And I fully understand that. Because it can. It absolutely can. But I think there's a proven track record that it hasn't. It hasn't been a catastrophic failure of anything like that. So if you guys are into overclocking and you want me to do more overclocking benchmarks, I absolutely will, because I love doing overclocking. I do have a battery pack sponsorship coming in the future, and I'm going to do some just longevity tests with that. So I'm going to do base battery life on the Steam Deck, an undervolted but stock clock battery life, and then we're going to do an undervolted but unlocked clock, and then we're going to do it full out 18 watt TDP overclocked whatever to the max, and then we're going to test the battery life with and without the battery pack. So I think that would make for a pretty cool data, nice video. If you want me to do anything else with it, if you want more feedback or info or anything like that, let me know. But that should be happening within the next week or two of me getting it, and then I believe about a week or so after that I'll probably have a video out about it. But yeah, so keep an eye out for that. Keep an eye out for more content in the future. Again, if you guys want me to do more Diablo or optimizing guides, I think the settings that I have here are fairly good for the Steam Deck. And just lightly touching on the graphics pack, my recommendation for that, honestly, people will tell you, yeah, there's a big difference. Oh, there's not a big difference. Honestly, you're not going to notice that massive of a difference on the Steam Deck screen. So if you want a prettier experience and you have the bigger size Steam Deck, or you're installing it to your SD card, go ahead. If you have the 64 gig, well, you're not even going to be able to... Well, no, actually, you can install it, but you won't be able to install the texture pack. So if you have if space is a concern, I wouldn't bother with the textures. You're still getting the Diablo experience. If you have space or you only play one game at a time, go for it, install the HD textures. There doesn't really seem to be too much of a performance hit between them. It seems to just kind of boil down to video RAM usage for the most part. I'm sure there probably is some areas where, yes, it is taking a bit of a heavier hit, but in my light testing, it didn't really seem to make too much of a difference. So if you're into it and wanting it, go ahead. All the footage you've seen has had the texture pack installed. So there you go. Again, thanks for watching. If you guys have subscribed, I really appreciate it. Thank you. We're actually really close to getting to the 1,000 subscriber woohoo mark. Like, we're just shy of 900 now, so that's really cool. Expect more giveaways. I just haven't really had time to sit down and like do the full-on editing of like editing the codes and doing all that and getting decent game codes in general, because I don't really want to give away like, here's just a crappy game, like whatever, right? But I do... And if it is like a crappy throwaway game or something, I'll name the game, and then with the expectation that a lot of people might pass on it, but somebody will come by and be like, oh yeah, that's a cool game, I'll check that out, or I want that, or whatever. Or somebody will snipe it and never use it. Whatever. But anyway, that'll do it for this one. Thanks again for watching, guys. Let me know if you're liking Diablo on the deck. Let me know if you're using 40 FPS, 60 FPS. Let me know what settings you're using. Yeah, just let me know if you're a Diablo fanatic like myself. Yeah, hit me up and we can play for sure. Alright, take care, guys. Have a good one.